I have learned is I've learned to also understand that your spouse is your teammate. And because I coach basketball. So for me, it's like, if my spouse turns it over, I'm still going to sprint back on defense because I still have to play defense for the team. So just because I had a bad day at work or whatever the case may be, and I come home, I don't know what my wife went through to hear, right? Because if my wife stay at home. So the kids could be driving her up the wall, and I may come in, I may have one kid on the ceiling, one kid's head stuck in a trash can. I'll be asked to do some stuff, and I'm going to do it.
I'm here with Brandon Moore of the podcast Be Motivated. That's B, the letter motivated. And he is a life coach and a very, very interesting man. It's true. We talk about men's issues and life from men's point of view, mental health, discipline. So let's get right in. So my first question. You in one of your videos you mentioned um, discipline and how there's a lot of videos online about people telling you to be motivated, but forgetting on how to actually get motivated and how to get to the point where you're consistent in your motivation, or at least your discipline. Can you talk a bit about your experience and how you help people with this?
Yes, Mark. Well, first of all, let me say thank you for having me on.
My
I
pleasure.
really appreciate this opportunity and this great conversation we're about to have. So, yes. So, you are right. There are tons of videos out there that talk about motivation. Some talk about discipline and how it's the best tool for you. And my thought process on it is it's a journey to get to that point of discipline, right? You comes a lot of sacrifice that has to go into it, and sometimes it's more self reflective and a lot of self observation to get to the point where you're disciplined, right? Like, I played sports in high school and college, and
Hmm.
it was a little bit easier in my generation to be disciplined because we didn't have a lot of distractions. So we didn't have social media. I'm great to turn 42 next week. We didn't have cell phones when I was growing up. So the distraction level was very low. So being disciplined was just doing something that you did every single day. And you found out you were good at it, right? So you just continued to do it. And then, so that kind of helped with the motivation factor. It was kind of like wake up every day, eat my breakfast. I'm going outside. I'm playing, whether it's football, basketball, track, baseball, wherever. I'm going out, and I'm that was my discipline, right? Because I didn't have a lot of
Hmm.
distractions.
Hmm.
Even when I tell my kids this now, even when like gaming came in, so Atari, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, right? So I'm telling my age now, right? I'm going all the way back here. But even with those, it was still easy to be disciplined because your household, your parents had those rules set in. You're going outside. If the sun was out, you're outside. If it wasn't raining, you was outside. And heck, sometimes even if you were raining, you was outside. You just went into the garage and waited till the rain stopped, right? So the discipline factor growing up was a little bit easier because of the foundation that for when my parents laid out. My dad was a Marine, so he was very disciplined in just about everything. He was my first coach, and I mean, I couldn't. I could hit a home run, and my dad would critique me.
Hmm.
He would critique me. It was we need to get to the batting cage, an extra
Hmm.
day. When it was football, we need to go to the track an extra day. So that kind of instilled not just a discipline, but that work ethic, right? That work ethic. And then also remember, you don't have a lot of, when you're a kid growing up, you don't really focus on your traumas, right? So your traumas, as you become an adult, your traumas slow you down because those are things that you think about all the time. Like, why did this happen? Or how can I get through this? Or, the level of frustration that's there, right? The level of frustration that's there, it slows you down because then you start to think, well, if I'm so disciplined and I'm getting all this stuff done, why is this stuff still happening to me? Or, why did I fail this exam? Right. I mean, just something to say. And I studied every day. Because in order to get discipline, you have to also navigate through those downfalls, and that's part of your discipline journey, right? Because if you still wake up and you want to do something every single day, even when you do fail, even when you do have a setback,
Mhm.
that's true discipline right there.
Mhm.
That's true discipline. So that's the
Absolutely.
journey. That's
Mhm.
the journey of it right there.
And for men and women that are listening, what are some tips or techniques you can give on that specific? Like, if you have one of those days, like nothing goes well, and you have to pick yourself up, but it may take like a week to actually do it. Is there any way to do it a bit faster?
Well, yes and no. You want to be careful with that. I had this quote that, for my basketball team that we travel and play, and it's life is a journey, but you have to embrace the progress, right? You have to embrace that. You can't skip steps. That's the thing that people want to do, right? You want to skip steps because you think you're going to get to your peaceful destination a whole lot sooner than what you would. But what I
Hmm.
would say to people is, continue that same discipline. Continue the same discipline. You know what I mean? Because just because you're having some down moments, and everybody does. Life is not, for me in my 42 years next week I've been alive, I've realized that I've been hit with a lot of stuff. And, for one is don't measure your success or your downfalls or your struggles against somebody else's. That's the first thing. Because sometimes when you do have that bad week, I guarantee there's multiple thoughts of your head that you're comparing it to your friend, you're comparing it to a family member, a coworker, an associate. You're like, man, I'm having this bad week and they're over there living their best life and I'm over here struck. That's the first thing is don't compare because
Yeah.
you don't know what somebody's truly going through. Once you get to that point where you're not comparing, then you just go back to the drawing board. Okay, well, you know what? I still got to wake up. I still got to go to work or do what it is that I have to do every day. And what I do in the morning, I listen to various podcasts. I may listen to church sermons, podcasts, music. My wife has gotten me more intrigued on walking. My wife walks every day,
Good.
and the power of walking, not just for your physical health, but just your mental and emotional health.
Hmm.
You walk, go
Yeah.
for a quick walk, and wake up or try to set a new discipline. If you wake
Hmm.
up at 8, wake up at 6.
Hmm.
See how that can impact your week.
Hmm.
That those are kind of the things that I would say. It's not like I'm speeding up the process, but you're kind of doing an elimination of anything else that is negative,
Yeah.
anything else that's going to add to that sulkiness that you go through during that week.
Hmm. Yeah, especially taking baby steps
Yes,
is a big thing. A lot of people, including myself, it's easy to fall in that trap of okay, I have to go from here to there, like now, and you can keep it up for a few days, but it's very easy then to become discouraged, and it's too big of a step, right? You have to incrementally, as you said, like wake up earlier, go for that walk, and do different things, and get
right.
to that discipline. Yeah, and I'm thinking of what you mentioned about like the what not comparing yourself to other people, and especially not, let's say, to their Facebook page, what they were
Oh
presenting,
man,
all the happy pictures, and they're always, happy with the kids in the park, and it's always
Oh my
sunny,
goodness,
and
yes, yes,
it's always,
yes, yes.
um, yes, it's not something. It's amazing how rationally we know this and how we keep doing this all the time, right? Whether
That
it's,
you
yeah.
know, it is because it's like, you know, I just like I have this thing where I'm just like, man, like you see all these videos and it's easy for you to get compelled into the bright sun, the blue water, the white sand, the husband and wife that are very, very affectionate and loving, and the kids that seem like they're perfect, and this whole lifestyle, right?
Hmm.
And you know, I'm not saying that it's not real. I'm not saying that there are not people that live that way. I'm not.
Hmm.
But what I am saying is that you have to be careful because it's like when you're watching a romantic movie, right? If you're watching a romantic movie and you're just like, hold up, that's not real. Like that, like that life doesn't work like that. Like that's not real. You have to be able to separate the reality and the message. Maybe the message of that is like, hey, continue to work hard and get through, and navigate through your difficulties, and have this bright sun and blue water and have this as your end result. Maybe that type of paradise is your true happiness with yourself, true happiness with your life, true happiness with whatever business you're into. Like maybe that's what that sign is for. Because my thing is, I'm gonna post anything I need to post if YouTube is paying me. I mean, that's the
Hmm.
thing that that's the thing that you know we as adults we monitor our children with it, but yet it's hard for us to monitor ourselves with it because it looks so good. It's like I can have it right now. And
Hmm.
it's like you have no clue what's going on in that person's life that's posting that video,
Yeah.
right? And so to your point, it is that comparison right there is to me. I'm not saying it's not good, but that comparison right there, that's very tricky because it can set you up for false narratives of how life is supposed to be, and it's everything's supposed to be so perfect and so blue and sunny, and you're like, well, no, it doesn't work like that.
Hmm.
Because if that was the case, Adam never would never would have bit the apple.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like that was the case, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So yeah, like to your point, we as people we have to be careful with that. Have to be very
Yeah.
careful with that.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to know that obviously we shouldn't do that, and we do that, but we shouldn't do that. And on the other hand, the other part of social media is very often, sorry, you hear a lot about men's, well, you hear a lot of negative things about men in general. Um, and I wanted to ask if you a lot of negative stories about people's lives as well, not just the happy, like the fairy tale stories, the
Mhm.
rom-coms, but there's always a lot of, let's say, about stories about toxic masculinity, for example, and
Oh
different
man,
things. And as an antidote to that, I was wondering, do you have any stories from your coaching or from the people around you or from yourself that kind of proves, it kind of gives a positive story of personal development of, let's say, somebody you know that's a friend that went through something horrible and really got out of it and turned their lives around, or one of your coaching clients that again just completely turned their lives around and said, okay, I'm done with this, I'm just going to take care of myself now, I'm going to do this and that. Do you have any stories you
yes,
can share?
man, I have tons, I have tons of stories
Good.
from from my life, my family's life, from clients' lives. You know, I can speak personally, like real quick, and then I actually have a client in mind that I'm going to tell you about. You know, like as as I was growing up, not everything wasn't easy, but my parents did a great job of helping me navigate through. I had a strong faith. Like, I mean, I was in the Bible. Not like I wasn't the one that went to church on Sunday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, not like that. But I was very, very versed in it, and because it helped me, flat out because it helped me. And then you go through a lot of like life struggles as you hit adulthood, whether it be family, friends, your job, all this stuff, and you you start paying attention to things that are said. You don't want to, but you start to, just because you're like, man, if, I'm hearing it pretty consistently. So does that mean that is true, right? And you can go one or two ways with that, right? You can literally go one or two ways. You can sulk in that madness and literally be a shell or a fraction of yourself for the rest of your life, or you can kind of muster up some strength and get back into what helps you along the way. You know, the past couple of years is like it has been challenging, but we've also been blessed. And that's something that I try to focus on with myself, my family, is that, yeah, we've hit some hard times, some rock bottom times, but we're still blessed. Like, we could be 6, 7 feet on the ground. We could have a terminal illness. We could not be around any type of family that is here to help. You know, you can literally be completely in a place and be completely alone. So those are the blessings that we have, and you try to focus on to help, to your question, turn your life around, right? To help turn your life around. And that's kind of what I tell myself every day. When I say my prayers at night, to myself every day, okay, new day, we got to turn something around. We got to, what? How can I be better today than I was yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Who can I impact today? Is it doing dishes? Is it sweeping the floor? Is it making breakfast? Is it helping with dinner? Whatever the case may be, like, how can I be better today than I was yesterday? Right. And I do have a client. I had one client, young kid. He was out of Ohio, and he battled. He had a medical condition that he battled, and he was constantly getting let go from his employment, and he didn't understand why. And so we dug into his anxieties. We dug into, like, hey, look, like, are you communicating this stuff with your employers? And he's like, no, I'm not communicating. But whenever a situation happens, those anxieties and that stress comes up. But this one particular place he was actually at for a few years, he thought it was home. He thought it was him. Thought this is my place where I'm going to plant my roots and I'm going to retire from. And they let him go. And he was at a place where, not only did he want to do harm to himself, but he wanted to harm others, because he just didn't understand. He was just mad, right? It got to a level where anger was his first and only emotion, if that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so when we talked, it wasn't, and it's going to sound kind of weird, but it wasn't a trying to prevent him from doing anything. It was more of identification. Because sometimes when you identify with your emotion, that automatically is going to spring change. Sometimes, right? Sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it doesn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we dug into that. We dug into, like, why do you feel like that? Like, what is going on? And just deep down, and it turned out that he went into his mother and father's relationship, went into that type of stuff that he never talked about. So went into trauma that has never healed. Um, and so that came, and then he obviously, settled down, was able to find him another job. And he actually just messaged me like last week, giving me an update, telling me that he's been promoted. This is great. He's using some of the techniques that we kind of came up with to help him, and things like that. And again, the thing about life coaching is, you really realize when you're helping somebody the skeletons you have. So as I'm talking to him, I'm like, man, like this is okay. I'm going through this, and I don't even it's not even publicly out there. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So again, but that's one of my clients, my recent clients that um, I've helped that really, really, really was at a point where I've been there. So it was easy. I'm not gonna say easy for me to help, but it was more identifiable for me to
Mm-hmm.
help, because our conversation was like, I've been where you're at.
Yeah. Is
You
that a
know.
common thing you see where people, especially young men, find it hard to identify the emotions they have, and
Oh yes.
it comes out as anger?
Oh
And
yes. Oh yeah.
yeah, okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, because it's as a young kid growing up, as a young man growing up, boys don't cry. But
Mm-hmm.
boys don't cry. Boys don't talk to nobody. You wipe it off, shake it off.
Mm-hmm.
Go. You're okay, right? So as you become an adult and you really start to pile up on things, then it comes from that lack of understanding, because you don't understand what's going on, which breeds that anger of not understanding. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where a lot of, not just young people, but a lot of men um, have that. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of men have that because there's a lot of things
Yeah.
that you're told as a young kid that they still tell you as an adult. And sometimes you're just like, it's not weak to talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It's not weak to have these emotions. It's not weak to get emotional. It's not weak to cry. It's not weak to feel differently than something that's barbaric. And what I
Yeah.
mean by barbaric is having that manly force that the world wants you to have, right? Like men are untouchable, and it's like, nah, that's not true. Like
Mm-hmm.
men struggle just as much as anybody. It's just we don't. There's not a lot of safe spaces, and
Mm-hmm.
that's something that when I talk to my clients about, I talk to them about that. Like I understand there's not a lot of safe spaces. Like my next episode, just a little tidbit. My next episode is going to be on that. What is a true safe space for a guy to talk to?
Mm-hmm. Can you give us a little preview on that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the next one is going to be pretty much, if you notice, a lot of my episodes are personal. A lot of them are personal. A lot of them are just, again, it was therapeutic for me. So a lot of them are very, very, I use it as therapy for myself. But safe spaces is what's a true safe space for somebody to talk about how they truly, truly feel without feeling judged, without being told, no, that's not how you feel. Like how many times have you heard that, right? You tell somebody and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no, that's not how you feel. You couldn't feel like
Mm-hmm.
that because nobody else feels like that. Well, obviously, I am that one person that feels like that, right? But it's like, where's that safe space? Because, you know, you kind of look at the things that's going on in the world and you kind of wonder, did that person have anybody to talk to? Like, even if they still committed whatever they were going to do, did that person have somebody to talk to?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there truly a safe space for people to talk? Right? It's like 9 times out of 10, if you're not in a specific career field, if you're not, as a man, if you're not in a career field that brutes quote unquote toughness or, physical strength or whatever the case may be, it's like nothing else matters. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you've had some failure, not even say some failure, some challenges in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe your challenges are back to back. You know, do you feel safe around your family to really talk about how you feel? Do you feel, even your spouses, right? Do you feel safe around your husband or your wife? Will they judge you? Like, will they, you know what I'm saying? Like all that stuff matters to a male. So for the most part, if we don't have a significant answer, we just keep stuff to ourselves. We'll say, you know what, I'll deal with it internally, and maybe I'll go exercise, maybe I'll go eat, maybe I'll go do whatever the case may be to ease that pressure of not really having anybody to really talk to without feeling like, without feeling like I'm a failure, without feeling like I'm judged, without feeling like you're going to give up on me, without feeling like you're going to ostracize me, all that type of stuff. Because we're
Yeah.
supposed to be there with a person through thick and thin.
Mm-hmm.
Like a man is supposed to be there, right? But then it's like,
Mm-hmm.
who's there to catch the man?
Yeah.
Sometimes when that man is at.
So how do you see a positive progression in this? How can we help? Like as men with other men, because
Have have conversations
that,
like this.
for example,
Have
yeah.
forums. Have forums like
Mm-hmm.
this. One thing I would love to do is have a forum or have a
Mm-hmm.
conference
Like a
where we
men's
are
group or.
like a men's group, a men's conference where we are talking about this,
Mm-hmm.
where we are, we're somewhere and it's a weekend or not a weekend, maybe a weekday, and we're talking about safe spaces. We're talking about feelings. We're talking about that. Like, how can we help you be a better you, right? And that's ultimately what I want to do would be motivated. Is that I want to be able to motivate, but also want to be able to hold forums and hold conferences, and not just locally, but on Zoom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because nowadays you can do anything on Zoom like this, and be able to, you know, take those questions and answer them, and have different experts on that can help answer, and even have a woman,
Mm-hmm.
like even have a woman expert on here that can give us like, why do men feel like that from your perspective?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah. So go for it. I think you'll be absolutely yeah, you'll be absolutely brilliant.
I
So
appreciate that.
absolutely, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that appear on your website. So
Yes, I
that's
appreciate that.
yeah. No, you'll be perfect. I mean, there's such a um, lack of safe space, and I think you choose that topic very very well for your next podcast. It's like outside of my close friends, I wouldn't even know who to talk to.
See,
Like try going. Like a lot of my neighbors here are male and older men, and they're very very friendly, but like they don't do emotions. Like it's not a thing.
that's true. That's
Um,
true. Like my dad, he doesn't do. He's not the most emotional person. So
hmm
like there are times where I'll tell my mom something. I'll tell
hmm
my mom something, and my wife, my sister, my mom be like, "Hey, did you tell your dad?" I'm like, "Nah, nope,
hmm
nope," because
Yep.
but it's no fault to him though,
hmm
right? Because
Yeah.
that generation grew up differently, right? So as you get older, you kind of see the different generations and how they grew up and their mentality, right? Like I've always been around very strong women, very strong women, and and from my mom, my aunts, my mother-in-law. I mean, I've always been around women who are extremely strong in nature, and but also have this like they have this heart, right? They have this
Yeah.
like this warm heart about them that's like, okay, I'm going to get on you, right? I'm going to get on you. I'm going to tell you what I think, but I'm also going to bring you in because I know you need this. I know you need this help. Or I know you need this hug. I know you need, like I know you need this, right? And but for men, right? For men, either the wife, the woman had to be strong because she had to because there was no man in the house, or she went through abuse, or the man just was more of a child than a man, right? Which goes into again that trauma about him, like who has he talked to help him,
hmm
right? or she just has this unbelievable heart. And for me, I've been around women that encompass all of that,
Mm-hmm.
right? They encompass all of that.
Yeah.
My mom's first husband abused her,
Mm.
and it was one of those where I see where my mom got certain things from. Like I see why certain things she's very cutthroat about, but I also see why, back then, marriage meant more to women than it did to men in my parents' generation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're growing up in that situation, right? Man goes to work, the woman may work, but there may not be a lot of that connectivity there, but there's still this underlying level of respect and love there, right? So all to say this, that the juggling of the emotions right now, in this new age, which is what it is, this new generation. You got new technology. You got everything is brand new.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all trying to navigate and try to figure this out. And now history repeats itself. So now, man, now we're back to like, you have from social media, if you see a man that's expressing his feelings and you read the comments, right? If you read the comments, half the comments are about him talking about his feelings,
Mm-hmm.
expressing his feelings,
Yeah.
and not in a positive way, but in a negative way. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
hold up, well, all he's doing is saying how he's feeling,
Mm-hmm.
or so that part is hard to navigate, which is
Mm-hmm.
why I would like to have that forum, because
Mm-hmm.
I think having something like that, Mark, is just it's extremely important.
Yeah.
It's extremely
So
important.
I completely agree. And so what some of the ways you might envision, how you might envision that men could reach out to those men that do leave those kind of comments, and to try and approach them in a loving way, because I would assume that the people that leave these comments do so because it hits something in themselves that it triggers them enough
Yes.
to actually leave a comment. So how can, let's say, the men that are able to express their emotions more healthily, how can they approach or work with men that are still very much triggered by something like this?
Some of that is just creating an atmosphere that they can come to, that they feel
Hmm.
comfortable to. You're not going to force anybody to do anything they don't want to do, right? Um, but and also get into the communities and start talking about safe communication. I mean, I'm a communications major, and you know, that's something that has been talked about. Like, who, from the root of communication, who can you talk to? Right? It's almost like, remember when you was in grade school and your teacher stood you up in line, and she, I think the game was called like telephone or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
You tell the first person something, and the message has to get all the way down to the end,
Hmm.
right? And in between there, there's a lot of miscommunication. There's
Yeah.
a lot of there's a lot of miscommunication there. So that that's what that is, right? It's like, very rarely did you get it correct, because you have so many different perceptions and so many different ways of hearing and listening. But what if you knew you created this atmosphere, and you could go to and feel just as comfortable that your message was just going to be heard. No actions have to be done, but your message or your emotions or whatever was just going to be heard. No judging, no facial expressions, no nothing. It was just going to be heard. And then your next question is, what would you like to do? right? Then that gives you the ownership of being like, you know what, I just wanted somebody to listen, or I need some help.
Hmm.
You know, that's one thing that you don't hear from a lot of men is I need help. You know, now I will say this: past few years, you've had a lot of professional athletes come out and they're really talking about their mental health, and I think that is very important. I think that's extremely important. But
Yeah.
you don't have a lot of men that come out and say I need help, and I
Hmm.
think we need to dig into why. Like
Yeah,
why.
we need more positive role models in that way. That's for sure. I mean, just turn on the TV. Actually, I don't turn on TV, but for people that turn on the TV, don't turn on the TV.
Right.
There's so
Exactly.
much. There is. I mean, it's every time if you kind of detox from it for a while, and you turn it back on after a few months, it's very impactful. All the negative messages you see. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
And you mentioned you also work with men's mental health and entrepreneurship. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So I've for me and trying to be an entrepreneur and seeing family and friends that are entrepreneurs, I've kind of pieced together, how they are in the beginning versus when adversity hits, and how their mental health is throughout their process, right? Because it takes a lot to be an entrepreneur. I mean, it takes a whole lot. It takes a lot of patience, sacrifice, planning, discipline, consistency. It takes a lot of that. And sometimes, if your mental health is not there, or it's not to a point where you're able to navigate through some of your life challenges as well as some of your entrepreneurial challenges, they relate, right? They tie into each other, right? It's like like you said, you worked in the corporate sector. So in the corporate sector, if you had a bad day at home, or if you had a bad day at work, 9 times out of 10, when you got home, you didn't really feel like doing anything. If you had a bad day at home, an argument or something like that, you try not to take it to work, but there are times when your responses were not meant for that coworker. Like,
Hmm.
that attitude was not
Yeah.
meant for that coworker, right?
Yep. Hmm.
So all that is what I mean, right? It's if your foundation is not right,
Hmm.
right? If I'm just a firm believer. If your home is not right, a lot in your life is not going to go right.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
in my belief, now this is just my belief. I'm not putting
Hmm.
this on anybody that's listening to this. My belief is that when God created the family, He created the foundation. He created that for a reason. Like in the Bible, how it talks about when He talks about how a husband should treat his wife, how a wife should treat the husband, how a husband should treat the family, and so on and so on. And some of the examples that He gives, if you look at those lives, like those lives tend to they're able to navigate through difficulty a little bit better, and their family stays close, and everything else kind of opens up,
Hmm.
right? So that's
Yeah.
that's what I mean. That's my belief there.
Mm. Okay. Um, I completely agree. And before you mentioned like, a lot of it seems to come down to communication, right, between men or between men and women. What what are the biggest pitfalls you see? What are the biggest issues people are struggling with when it comes to communication with their friends and their partners, especially men?
Perception.
Hmm.
Perception. Like, perception is reality, and some of that understanding, or that lack thereof understanding, just comes from you having your own thought process of how this person should be feeling, or what this person should be doing, or how this person should be behaving. And so therefore, you listening to something that is telling you what you're not doing, right? You automatically going to block out, because you're like, well, I'm not doing it, you're not doing it, right? And that creates that wall instead of just listening and just communicating. Like I would say,
Mm-hmm.
like I would say, there's two women. My mom and mother in law, they have this ability where they can sit quiet and listen to you, and I mean just won't say a word, but just listen to you. And then after you get done, then they'll give you their 2 cents. What it means the world, because it's like, man, I finally have somebody that can just sit here and listen. Now, whether they're judging you or not, which they're not, because for me, I don't believe they are, because they've been through more stuff than what I've been through, wife been through, my sister's been through, family's been through, right? They've been through I'm not a lot more trauma filled things. So they're listening based off of the experience, right? And based off of like, hey, I'm not going to tell you how you should do, but this is my 2 cents on what can help you. And sometimes that reality, speaking that reality, is is hard to hear, right? Like I said, like even to this day, it's hard to hear from my mom. And funny story, about a week or two ago, my mother in law just got on me and my wife, and it was hard to hear. It's like, oh well, you know what? You're absolutely correct. Let me go over here and sit down. It's like, right? But like that experience and that honesty, right? That they have that honest love, right? They're gonna love you regardless, and they're gonna tell you when you mess up.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna tell you what you need to do. They're gonna give you the reality of it. They're gonna tell you like, hey, no, this is a bad idea and this is why. Now, if you listen, you listen. If you don't, you don't. They're still gonna love you if you don't listen, but they're also gonna tell you you should have listened. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think this generation is missing. Because now you have parents. So we miss those type of parents, because now you have parents that want to be friends. So now they miss that holistic, that honest thing. And you have babies having babies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the
Yeah.
lack of experience that you're going to have is going to be limited. It's going to be extremely limited versus your parents, right? Your parents. Um, so yeah, I mean, that honest communication needs to be there, and it's not there. Typically, we listen to respond.
Yeah. That's
Instead of just
active
listening.
listening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of just listening to be like, okay, you need somebody to listen to. Here I am listening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to listen to you. And then afterwards, ask you 2 questions, or ask you one. What do you want to do now?
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
want to fix it? Or do you want to, where you just wanting to vent,
Mm-hmm.
and then you move on. And a lot of things is this, what I've noticed is when you can't listen from a state of hurt. You can't. Your emotions are too tied. Like you can't listen from a state of hurt. And sometimes we ignore that because nah, you need to listen to me. Like I got something to say, you need to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, man, this is not gonna go well because I'm upset, I'm hurt, I'm sad. Like I can't fully, because this particular topic or this whatever is a, like you mentioned earlier, is a trigger,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how can we navigate through that, right? And we can't always listen from the confounds of like everything somebody else says is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
because it may be constructive criticism for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And men, we that's where we're at, right? That's where we're at, right? It's like, you know, like you hear men say, "Man, all I do is gotta sit here and listen to you tell me what I'm not doing, me messing up, and all this stuff because I gotta hear it from work, and I gotta hear it from home, and
Mm-hmm.
all this stuff, right?" And it's like we're already on edge as a man.
Mm-hmm.
You're already on edge.
Yeah.
It's just you're just navigating through it.
Mm.
It's like so.
So if it's a conversation like that, like for example, somebody comes home from work and they've had a horrible day at work, and they come home and the partner is upset about something, and um, ask you to do things, and you're like, oh my god, not now, can't be bothered. How would you recommend, like, who has to take what steps?
That's a tough one because it's a tough one because it's so real, right? Because it happens. That what you just said happens every day, right? You have a bad day at
Hmm.
work, you come home, and now you're being asked to do all this stuff, right? I'll tell you this personally. What I have learned is I've learned to also understand that your spouse is your teammate, and because I coach basketball, so for me, it's like if my spouse turns it over, I'm still going to sprint back on defense because I still have to play defense for the team. So just because I had a bad day at work or whatever the case may be, and I come home, I don't know what my wife went through here, right? Because if my wife stay at home, so the kids could be driving her up the wall, and I may come in, I may have one kid on the ceiling, one kid's head stuck in the trash can, and I'll be
Yeah.
asked to do some stuff, and I'm going to do it. I'm
Hmm.
going to do it because I have to. We we have to understand that I don't know. I don't know everything that you're going through. Your spouse is going through, right, during the day, right? Because I'm at work. I may talk to you a couple times, right? But really don't know after that conversation, what happened between the
Hmm.
next time I talk to you, right?
Yeah.
So I would say the advice I would say is, remember that your spouse is your teammate. And you come home, it's like, okay, you know what? Let me help out for a little bit. Let us get settled, and then let me go into my decompression.
Hmm.
Maybe it's playing a video game, going for a walk, taking a quick nap, going to the gym, or just sitting down and talk, having a cigar and whiskey and talking, like whatever that may
Yeah.
be, right? You have to realize that your spouse is still your teammate, right?
Hmm.
Because you come in here, your one kid's climbing up the wall like the Exorcist, another kid is running around with a trash can on their head, and
Hmm.
your wife is laying on the ground or your spouse is laying on the ground like like she just got
Yeah.
killed or whatever, right? You got to come in,
Yeah.
and you got to
Hmm.
help. Even though
Hmm.
you've had a hard day, you still got to come in and you still have to help. And
Yeah.
that's also vice versa. That's vice versa, right? I mean, because you just don't know. Like, I'm a believer of, like, these past couple of years. I give example. The past couple of years, my wife has been through a lot, and as a family, we've been through a lot. So I'm a little bit more empathetic when it comes to trying to help. Now I have my moments where I'm like, look, man, like I just got done dealing with this. Now I gotta do this. I just listened to this person tell me about this, and now I gotta. But she's my teammate, right? She's my teammate, and my pops was a Marine. My uncles was a Marine. My wife was a Navy chief. Her mom and dad was in the service. Our whole families are in the service. You never leave somebody behind.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of something that's kind of embedded, right? And I also want to teach my kids that, because we got to understand, your kids watch and listen to everything that you do or say.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Like this morning, I would tell
Hmm.
you that this morning I had on one shirt. I had on a gray shirt. But my 4 year old was like, "Oh, Daddy, I want to wear that shirt." Like she wants to wear my shirt. I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, like it's okay." But so I had to be like, "Okay, honey, hey, have you seen my red shirt?" She finds my red shirt. So I had to give up my gray shirt for that one. And
Yeah.
then my 5 year old comes in and is like,
Hmm.
"Dad, where's my shirt? I want to dress like you." Like, so so you have so you have that. They watch everything you
Hmm.
do.
Even
Daddy,
with the
what's
trash
wrong?
can on the head.
Yes, even with the trash in her head. It's like, Daddy, what's wrong?
Hmm.
Like my 5 year old, she has gotten to a point now where she'll ask you, "How was your day?" And I credit that to her mom, like, because her mom asked me, "How was your day?" She hears that. She sees that.
Mm-hmm.
She sees that, right? So you also want to teach your kids that next generation, right? We talked about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That next generation. You want to teach them, okay, I grew up this way and I felt like it was the right way. Not saying it's the only way, but having that foundation, I think is going to be important. So
Yeah.
you have to teach like, yeah, I'm tired. Yeah, I don't feel like
Mm-hmm.
doing it. But guess what? You know, I see my wife relaxing on the recliner and she's about to take a nap because she had a hard day with the kids. I'm gonna go ahead and make dinner. My wife's not feeling well. I'm
Absolutely.
gonna go ahead and make dinner. Then I'll decompress later.
Mm-hmm.
You know, So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's that teammate. You got to remember
Mm-hmm.
your spouse is your teammate.
Yeah. And giving the good example, like so many parents, that's still the case. And this sometimes you do it without thinking consciously, but you say something to the kids, but you don't actually embody it yourself. And yeah, you have to really set the example because they copy and they see,
Yes.
and that's their normal, right? That's their little world
Yeah.
around them, and that's what they think is just normal.
Yeah.
So the more you
Exactly.
can, yeah, you can consciously break those generational traumas and actually say, okay, I can actually talk about my emotions. I can um, I can see my wife uh, as a as a teammate, and I can, because I was thinking of these just typical what they call boomer jokes. I think was always about the
Uh,
wife, is always insulting the wife, or whatever. And I think we sort of moved on a lot
yes.
beyond that.
Yes.
Huh? So I'm happy we are.
Yes.
And so what's next for you in terms of be motivated and your coaching?
You know, it's funny that you ask that. As I give I give the look away distinction. Like, oh man, that's a
Hmm.
tough question. Um, for me, it's is becoming more consistent on my episodes and
Hmm.
getting the message out there. My plan is this weekend. I've been wanting to. I don't have an official website, so I'm going to
Hmm.
create one. You know,
Good.
um, and I mean, you still can contact me. I still have an email address. You still can contact me.
Hmm.
But yeah, and kind of put more messages out there and
Hmm.
look for various speaking engagements. People want to hear me
Brilliant.
speak, do things like
Hmm.
this. Obviously, I would love to make a living that way.
Hmm.
But right now, this is a passion. This is something that's therapeutic for me that I feel like can help people, not just men, but all people.
Hmm.
Yeah, and kind of take some more notes and get ready for this next episode. So, which
Yeah.
I'm still trying to navigate how to do it because I'll tell you one thing, Mark. I recorded all of the ones that you listen to, not the YouTube, but the YouTube ones. I went to a buddy of mine's studio, but the ones just off my phone,
Hmm. Perfect.
literally just off my phone,
Hmm.
right? And so I was using Anchor. I was using
Hmm.
Anchor a few years ago, right? But then I know
Yeah.
Spotify bought Anchor, so now they're like podcasters. Now I can't figure out how to record an episode on this new platform.
Okay.
So yeah, so now I have to I'm trying to figure out how to record so I can kind of get that stuff taken care of.
Yeah. Going past the technicalities, and it can be complicated, but it's
Yeah,
definitely doable.
yes,
You'll be
yes.
fine.
So
Yeah.
the next episode is
Hmm.
is, is what I'm gearing up for, and kind of gonna put some more shorts out there. I've been kind of getting into like the AI a little bit, trying
Hmm.
to use that a little bit for some of my shorts that you've probably seen, and just kind
Yeah.
of get some speaking engagements. We
Hmm.
have a consulting service as well,
Hmm.
so kind of talk about that as well. So yeah, so just open for
Brilliant.
anything.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you for your very, very good advice. I really, really enjoyed talking to you and hearing all your advice. You are going to be amazing
Wow, thank you. I
where you
appreciate that.
expand your business and maybe a men's group or whatever. Like especially if you say it's your passion, then you can make it a living. Um, because that's obviously what you're meant to do then. So
I
and you're
appreciate
very good at it.
that.
So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
any links will be in the description on YouTube. And thank you very much for your time. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah. All right. See you.
Thank you.